I know it's been a while, but I have an essay for you today. I know how much you've been wanting an essay, so I have one. The Tragedy of the Commons and Women in Society Viewing Gender Dynamics Through a Resource Management Lens. Bound to be interesting, right? The Tragedy of the Commons, a concept developed by ecologist Garrett Hardin, describes a situation where individuals acting in their self-interest overuse and deplete a shared resource, resulting in collective ruin. Traditionally applied to environmental resources like fisheries or public pastures, the concept can be extended metaphorically to understand social dynamics and issues, including the way women are treated in society. By examining women as a common resource with certain cultural and socio-economic contexts, we can explore how this framework helps illuminate gender-based exploitation, societal expectations, and the consequences of treating women as communal assets rather than autonomous individuals. Ew, aren't you excited to get into this? Me too. In many societies, women have historically been viewed not as individuals with their own rights and agency, but rather as resources to be managed, utilized, and controlled for the benefit of families, communities, or states. This perspective has often led to practices that prioritize the collective good of maintaining social order, economic stability, or lineage continually over the well-being and autonomy of individual women. Practices such as arranged marriages, dowry systems, and even more modern forms of gender discrimination in the workplace can be seen as examples of how women's roles and rights are subordinated to perceived communal benefits. The tragedy of the commons model, when applied to women in society, suggests that when women are collectively viewed as a resource to be exploited, whether for reproductive purposes, domestic labor, or emotional support, there can be significant negative consequences for both the women themselves and the society at large. Just as overgrazing a pasture leads to ecological collapse, overburdening women with unequal expectations and responsibilities can lead to a breakdown in social cohesion and the erosion of trust and mutual respect between genders. This analogy highlights the risk of societal degradation when one group is consistently undervalued and overexploited. A key aspect of the tragedy of the commons is the failure to recognize the value of sustainable resource management. In the context of gender dynamics, sustainable management would mean acknowledging the rights, contributions, and autonomy of women. Instead of being seen as a limitless resource, women need to be recognized as individuals with their own needs, aspirations, and limits. Ignoring these aspects leads to overuse and depletion, manifesting as gender-based violence, mental health crises, economic inequality, and reduced societal participation from half of the population. Moreover, this framework can help us understand the pervasive gender-based violence and exploitation that occur when societal norms allow or even encourage the viewing of women as communal property. For instance, practices such as forced marriage, human trafficking, and exploitation in both domestic and professional settings can be seen as direct outcomes of treating women as a shared resource that can be used or abused without regard for their individual rights or well-being. This over-exploitation leads to societal instability and significant human rights violations. Furthermore, societal expectations often place disproportionate burdens on women, particularly in unpaid domestic labor and caregiving roles. When these expectations are viewed through the tragedy of the commons lens, we see a parallel to the overuse of a shared resource. The unpaid labor provided by women is often taken for granted and undervalued, resulting in burnout and limited opportunities for personal growth and economic advancement for women. This not only harms women, but also hampers broadened economic development, as the potential of half the population remains untapped and undervalued. In many patriarchal societies, women's reproductive rights are heavily regulated or controlled by societal norms, religious doctrines, or state laws. This control can be seen as an attempt to manage a resource for the benefit of the community or state rather than recognizing the autonomy of women. The overregulation can lead to negative outcomes, such as high rates of maternal mortality, unwanted pregnancies, and psychological trauma. As with the environmental resources in Hardin's original thesis, the overmanagement and restriction of women's reproductive rights leads to societal costs that outweigh any perceived benefits. Sorry about that. The commodification of women's bodies and labor extends to modern capitalist societies through economic structures that exploit women's labor disproportionately. This exploitation often manifests in gender pay gaps, the feminization of poverty, and barriers to leadership positions in various sectors. Women, especially those from marginalized communities, are often funneled into low-wage, insecure jobs, effectively reducing them to a renewable resource for economic gain. As a result, the societal commons becomes unsustainable as more and more women are prevented from achieving economic independence and stability. Additionally, the tragedy of the commons framework can be applied to examine the emotional labor expected of women in both personal and professional contexts. Women are often expected to maintain emotional harmony, manage relationships, and provide support without recognition or compensation, right? This expectation can lead to a form of emotional overgrazing, where women's emotional capacities are stretched beyond their limits, leading to burnout and stress. Over time, this depletes the emotional resources that women can offer, creating a relational breakdown similar to the collapse of an overused commons. The societal and psychological impacts of treating women as a common resource are profound. Women subjected to systematic inequality often suffer from higher rates of depression, anxiety, and other mental health disorders. This can be understood as the social cost of overexploitation, where the long-term well-being of women is sacrificed for short-term gains. The breakdown of women's health and well-being parallels the ecological deprivation seen in environmental tragedies of the commons, further highlighting the destructive consequences of this approach. To address these issues, society must shift from a commons mentality where women are treated as a shared resource to one that provides equity, autonomy, and mutual respect. This shift requires structural changes, including the promotion of gender equality, the protection of women's rights, and the empowerment of women through education, economic opportunities, and political participation. Sustainable management of societal resources in this case means fostering environments where all individuals can thrive without exploitation or discrimination. Efforts to mitigate this modern tragedy can draw lessons from Ostrom's work on managing common pool resources. Just as communities can develop rules, norms, and agreements to sustainably manage shared resources, societies can create equitable policies and structural shifts that prevent overexploitation of women. This includes promoting gender equality in all spheres of life, ensuring fair labor practices, and advocating for the protection of women's rights globally. Such measures can help create a more balanced and sustainable social system. By understanding the treatment of women as a tragedy of the commons, we can better grasp the systemic nature of gender inequality and the urgent need for reform. The sustainability of societies depends on the fair and equitable treatment of all members, and this requires acknowledging and addressing ways in which women have been historically overexploited. And this perspective provides a powerful lens for examining gender dynamics and advocating for transformative changes that promote equality, justice, and sustainable development. In conclusion, applying the tragedy of the commons framework to the treatment of women in society provides a compelling metaphor for understanding gender-based exploitation and the broader social implications of treating women as a communal resource. It highlights the importance of recognizing women's rights, contributions, and autonomy as essential to societal sustainability and progress. By reimagining gender relations through this lens, we can better appreciate the need for structural reforms that promote equality and prevent the social overgrazing that harms both women and society as a whole. Thank you for watching this video. I did take a bit of time to sort of think about the theme of the tragedy of the commons and how it relates to women's issues presently and from a global lens. If you like this video, I'd highly recommend you check out some of my other videos. I made a playlist that's called It's All About Women and Sex. There's a lot of videos there where I talk about my thoughts on feminism and general women's issues in society, the modern world. So please check that out. And again, thank you for watching. My name is Olivia. Subscribe, comment. I read your comments. I respond to your comments, and many of your comments actually fuel upcoming videos. I'm super into video essays right now, so look forward to more.